Hope everyone's doing all right, having a good Mother's Day. I do apologize for the stuff right behind me. I am in the back room over at Haven Comics in Madison. Um, it's been a while. It's been a long while. With everything regarding the expo and Free Comic Book Day and some other stuff, I have just been super duper busy. So, quite thankful that tonight we're going to be able to do this and get back into normal working things, I guess. Uh, Before I do anything else, just quick little housekeeping stuff. If you happen to like the show, any other show that we do at Haven Comics, just please remember to like and subscribe. And I'm just going to leave this little ticker on the bottom, and this is where you can find me on social media. And let's get to it. Like I said, been busy with the Huntsville Comic Pop Expo. It was year 10. That was at the end of April. And then, of course, Free Comic Book Day was not yesterday, Saturday, but the Saturday before. So, two big events back to back. A lot of stuff going on. Um, which reminds me that if I can pull this up real quick. Where are you? So, because of Jody Benson being at the expo, figured let's do Ariel from The Little Mermaid. I had a couple of people looking like they were about to pull the trigger on this at the expo, and unfortunately, no one did. So, if you do want to get this piece, it's currently framed and it's also hanging up over at High Point Market in Decatur. Um, and the Lord of the Rings piece that I did is also underneath it as well. And I also did this magic. Sorry, let me move this a little right here. Hopefully the glare isn't totally blinding the camera. But yeah, so she's getting another resurgence because of Marvel Rivals, but I've always known the character in, the OG costume. This is just me riffing on that. I had a couple of people message me saying I want prints of this. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But this is actually one of the prizes for the food drive that we did at on Free Comic Book Day, which Colin Major, if you are happening to be watching this, this is yours. It's ready to be picked up. So that out of the way, here, watch it fall off. So, heavy metal is back. Very happy about this. It's gone through some rough patches with, you know, Chapter 11, some people in management doing stuff that they shouldn't have been doing. But glad that they're back. Same thing with Metal Hurlant, with them doing their Kickstarter thing. And so, for those of you who are not knowledgeable of anything regarding heavy metal, Metal Hurlant was the magazine where a one Jean Girard, who is normally known as Mobius, his pen name. He's also got another pen name as Gear, but typically known as Mobius. He did a bunch of different characters, mostly working with Jodorowsky, who's a writer. And but Mobius also did a lot of stuff by himself. And one of them was this traveler who his name is Arzak. And this is my first time ever drawing this character. So I am just trying to interpret this the best that I can. And with anything regarding just, drawing characters like, this or Spider Man or Wonder Woman, whoever, It really boils down to three basic shapes. So obviously, you have lines, but within those lines, you tend to go back and forth between three different basic shapes. You got circles, you got triangles, and something square-like, maybe rectangular. But the point being is that those tend to be the three main basic shapes in every drawing. Um, During Free Comic Book Day, I had the constant comment from someone. Yeah, it kind of goes back and forth between adults to kids, and usually saying kind of the same thing, which is uh, I could barely draw a stick figure. And here's my counter argument from just hearing that often. Um, it's basically this: if you can write your name, or you just like handwriting in general and you do it often, uh, you basically have the grounds for drawing stick figures. It's a lot of lines, a lot of curves, a lot of loops, a lot of circles. So it kind of gets to the point of technically anyone can draw. The reality is uh, how much effort do you want to put into this? And I've kind of talked about this just a little bit in a note slash comment in my uh, newsletter for this month. And I just wanted to basically just kind of give uh, the words hard. Uh, basically wanted to give out the affirmation. That's the word. The affirmation that technically anyone can draw. It boils down to the point of the purpose as to why you're doing it. And it could be anything. You just do it for the fun of it. Uh, you're doing it because you want to draw your favorite characters, create new worlds. Maybe you just want to get into the storytelling side of it. And all those answers are, fine and dandy. So basically, just kind of boils down to uh, the repetition of it all. And this is where I get into like the sports analogies and stuff like that. And huh, that looked a little bit funky. Um, but I wanted to have Arzak and his flying bird creature thing. So I wanted to have him sitting on it, and I have to pull this thing down just a bit. But I wanted to have him sitting down, just kind of looking about, binoculars in hand, trying to figure out where he's going to go next. Now, I've never read Arzak from start to finish. I've read several pages of it and have always just enjoyed, um, I guess, the sci-fi scope, and I guess maybe fantasy scope of this character. But um, tangents aside, Metal Hurlong was basically Gerard Juliet, Jodorowsky, and several other different French comic guys, which over there they call them bande dessinée. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Um, and it was basically just a way for all these guys to just flex their pipes, um, and just create stories without limitation. And Mobius's stuff, um, which was already good. He was doing an iconic Western called Blueberry, who I want to say my argument for Blueberry is that it was very inspired by spaghetti westerns of the time and the era. But I think the character just looks a little bit like Charles Bronson. And that might just be a me thing, but I see Bronson uh, whenever I'm seeing pictures of Blueberry. But without Blueberry, you wouldn't have several different artists creating their stuff. And you could argue to say that, and this is no shade to Juliet, this is no shade to uh, Jean Claude Metizier, um, or any of those guys that were involved with Metal Hurlong, but Mobius was basically the you know, the godfather of what we know today as just French comics and just the bande dessinée. So I've always wanted to find a copy of Arzak, just because I've always liked the character. And problem is that you're paying at least 200, and that's on like the secondhand market. Of course, the guy's been dead since 2012, 2013. So, but the other problem I have is the fact that I can't decide which, I guess, version of the character to draw. There's just so many different options. So I'm basically just trying to pick and choose what I'm seeing and going from there. And it's also including a character sheet that Gerard had uh, put together as well. And let's see if we can do the loose baggy clothing thing. But yeah, so I forgot who it was in the States that found out about um, Metal Hurlong and decided, you know what, the US needs this. Um, you know, something to go against the code. the Comic Code Authority, that is. And here comes heavy metal, and which ended up being basically just English translation reprints of previous issues, and definitely worked. Um, Definite hit, inspired a lot of people, and there were even some comic writers, American comic writers, that actually got to do stories for it, like Ron Mars. Um, who, if you don't know who Ron Mars is, he basically created Kyle Rayner uh, during the 90s at DC. And he also wrote an issue to a Storm launch in the early days. And then, of course, in the early 2000s, uh, was a part of this really cool but unfortunate um, thing called CrossGen, with a bunch of other, A-listers. Um, so he was writing um, a lot of fantasy, a lot of sci-fi, basically just flexing his chops. Uh, and because of those stories he did at CrossGen, that's how I found out about Jim Cheung, who is arguably one of my favorites, uh, underrated artists. So the whole sitting down on some sort of steed thing is not easy for me, because it's not something that I just naturally draw. But it's also kind of the whole point, because again, we're in trying to interpret the character. Uh, the thing with Mobius is that he was very well known for the fact of these very loose, lines, but then there's like an intent and directness to the lines themselves, and so there's like this devil may care um, thing about it. It's really hard for me to explain. It's just one of these things where you have to look at his stuff and be like, okay, I get it. Now, granted, there is some stuff that Mobius has done which is very into the surreal, and which I think it's been confirmed that there was definitely some substance libations at work with some of that stuff going on. But But as you can obviously tell by the near frantic speed that I'm is trying to evoke the thing that just kind of makes movies and stuff that by slowly just tightening up the lines as I'm, trying to sketch this out, bring some sort of order to the chaos. And let's look at the face. Hmm. So it almost looks like he doesn't have any actual eyebrows or hair, but yet there's drawings of him being Arzak with blonde hair. So I'm just kind of, so I'm just going to go without the hair and we'll see how that works out. Yeah. So there's also going to be another heavy metal sketch, and it's going to be Tarna. I don't believe I'm going to be able to get around to that tonight. Um, but I do want to try to get this one done, if at all possible. The eye's a little bit too small. So I'm gonna have to push this back. So sorry. I really got to get in. One of the downsides to doing work with your camera, or in this case, cell phone. Right. Pages back in. Hmm. Now there is some sort of symbol or something right here. I'll figure that part out later. That's gotta be one of the weirdest designs for a brooch. Money and others. And of course not. Why would it be? What I am going to do, get that cat brown. I really forgot about it. Now, Mobius actually has a really interesting rendering design where he'll do something where it's just a bunch of like hatched lines, but then he'll do this number. And I noticed that with Travis Charest and his rendering, and come to find out that he actually got that idea from Mobius. So it just all kind of makes sense. But it's a hatching technique. I feel like it's just like super ingrained with just French comics in general. I mean, obviously, you'll see like normal hatching, normal feathering. Like I said, the man is basically the godfather of uh, you know what we consider today as just French comics. So hey, hey, old Gerald, what's up? I'm obsessed with Eduardo Riso and notice he doesn't use hatching at all. Yeah, yeah, I've noticed that with Riso as well. I haven't dug deep into a lot of his stuff as of late, which kind of mentioned this earlier. I'm just trying to get any sort of like um European comic on the secondhand market, and it's like a who's who person. You're shilling at least I think the lowest uh that I've seen, specifically something that is like out of print, may or may not have a signature. You're looking at about 125 to $175 on the secondhand market. Most of the Mobius stuff that I want to have in my collection, looking at the very least $200, and of course it's gone up because of obvious reasons. that we should not have to get into, but unfortunately, it's a reality. Um, a dumb one, but reality nonetheless. But I was hoping to have tried to get Arzak from uh, this place out in California that I've been ordering books from off and on for the last couple of years. And unfortunately, the Mobius that they still have in their collection, as much as I would love to get my hands on it, unfortunately, I cannot pull the trigger on it. But I did luck out. So Dark Horse, back in the 90s at some point, they actually reprinted several of the short stories and stuff like that, even Arzak, and they did them as like single issue floppies. And I lucked out one day going through the dollar bins last year, and I found one. Unfortunately, it was an Arzak. I think there was, I think there was something regarding the major uh, in it. I've only looked through it 2 times because I'm afraid of like opening it any more that I might damage it. Um, but it just kind of blew my mind. This thing was in the dollar bin, and because if you tried to find any of those issues again on the secondhand market, ridiculous prices. So it's definitely one of these things where I just counted my blessings on that one. But uh, by the way, people, if you do not know who Gerald is, he has a comic called Immortal Coil. Second issue of it, I believe, has already been funded on Kickstarter or is about to go live. It's one of the two. Um, Definitely pick it up if you are into things regarding um, just highly contrasted action comics, loads of violence. Okay, it is fulfilled. All right, awesome. And if I remember correctly, there's also Norse mythology regarding Immortal Coil as well. And he also, yep, just wrapped A Thousand Cuts #1, which is basically a revenge story based around a katana. Um, However, I'm not sure how much of the script has changed since I first read any of it. So, if none of it has changed since I've last read it back in like January or February, yeah, let me know about that. Um, yeah, Moral Coil, Norse mythology meets Eldritch horror, but um, both of them jam packed with a lot of heavy blacks, a lot of action. Um, Definitely check it out. Definitely support it. Um, and it sounds like him and Frank are going to be doing several more stuff in the works. But you know me, but I'm trying. um, I'm actually, as weird as it sounds, I'm trying to lighten up, which I feel like someone out there is laughing their ass off uh, by, by making that statement. Um, every now and then, I will have to do a highly contrasted thing. Uh, just because. But there's only so much I can do with that and it not make me feel like I'm a one trick pony. That's part of the reason why I've been messing around with watercolors and just trying to find better ways of doing stuff. Um, and it's also partly why I've been, for like the last 3 years, shooting down uh, anyone that is trying to make me do any sort of horror comic with them. Just because it's the same uh, argument. You know, it's just like, "But you draw really good monsters. They're all like, drooling and menacing and all this sort of stuff." Well, yes, um, but I prefer monsters in a source and sorcery setting versus having to do a horror comic. And I actually had this conversation with Jason Turner and regarding just art. Actually, no, it wasn't Jason Turner. It was Deegan at the expo, and it was just the fact of like doing interiors for a horror comic takes something out of you that you kind of just didn't want to have taken or just like out there. And of course, once it's there on paper, it's there. Um, I was doing Lilywood with Reed, even though there was a comedy slant to it, it was very dialogue heavy. Uh, there was just an element of the part where it goes full on Lovecraftian with the frogs for that split moment on that page that it took something out of me. Uh, Even though I still look back at those two pages and really enjoy it. And there's a couple of things definitely would have done differently now, but um, yeah. So, like I said, it's totally different if I'm drawing like Shumagorath from like Doctor Strange or uh, Venom, a Minotaur, whatever. When watching artists draw my Zen practice, that is literally how I feel whenever I am watching Daniel Warren Johnson go live on Fridays. Um, he's been going live a little bit later than normal. Um, I'm guessing it's because like deadlines and family and all of that. But apparently, uh, his excuse from the live show 2 nights ago was that he was golfing and he went. I think it was a couple rounds too long or something like that. I forgot exactly, but I got a kick out of that. Hey James, good to see you. Or read your comment. Yeah. So I'm very thankful that these blanks, because I was a little bit worried that they were going to be glossy and this was not going to work out. And I'm so thankful that it's like the right kind of matte, bit of a vellum feel to it. So quite thankful that that worked out. See if we can make this loose and puffy. So I don't want to say that I feel like I've been off more than I can chew, but I'm definitely giving myself a run for my money. Just trying to attempt a character I've never done before. Hmm. So part I'm trying to figure out is how I want the fold to drape with this shirt being so loose. And this is actually really good practice for me personally because I've been trying to work on clothing that is loose and has certain kind of weight to it. Long story short, the comic that I've been working by myself in silence, uh, or at least the storyboards of it and the character design. Um, the clothing is very reminiscent of the early 2000s, and you still have like the holdover of uh, you know, big loose clothing, specifically with like the jeans and uh, or pants and jackets. But then you started having the evolution of uh, the really tight shirts and halter tops, and um, you know, you do get into like the mini skirts and stuff like that happening. But at least with like you know, uh, crap, what do we call them? Low rise jeans. Um, there was like a sense of bagginess when it tapers down towards the foot, and uh, just trying to figure out different ways to uh, give off the idea that this is denim. It's been interesting. Uh, there's that, and of course, companies like Trip and unfortunately Jinko were a thing. Um, I'm pretty sure someone out there is just like, I'm gonna have to cancel him because he said something mean about Jinkos. Um, but outside of all that, it's been interesting to, well, first off, just work off of like fragmented memory. Not because of age. Part of it's just because I've lost uh, memory from that time period. So, just trying to look at material and TV shows, music videos, all of that, of just the fashion of the time, and some of it is starting to come back to me. But it's been interesting, especially since they're trying to bring back low rise jeans, and part of me is just like, they don't even look that low, because from what I remember, at least on women, um, unless your pelvic bone is like showing, you're they're not low rise jeans. And unfortunately, that kind of created a bit of a body image problem with women during that time period. Um, it just was not healthy at all, if we're being perfectly honest. And there was some of that also with guys as well, regarding the emergence of skinny jeans, especially in the scene. Because, like, there were just some guys you could just tell um, it didn't look like they were eating. Getting really tired of having to redo the same arm. Watching fashion trends resurface is wild. Yes, extremely wild. Dude, like I can't even walk into a Target or an Old Navy and then go into the clothing section and just see the stuff that was a thing in high school. Well, end of middle school, beginning of high school, and I don't know, it's like some kind of like weird whiplash thing. It's just really strange. But then again, I mean, it's just like fashion is very uh circular because it's always going to come around. Um and but the thing is that like in that time period of like the early 2000s, there was a real big push in fashion in everything from music, TV, um, video games. You definitely saw it. If you don't think so, go back and look at the hot TV shows that were coming out that time period, the hot movies of the time period, even if they were like B or C, lit tier. Um, Look at all the music videos, even like car commercials and stuff like that. It's just like comics. There was a real big trend in American comics regarding, especially in the Ultimates era. Look at how Peter Parker was drawn. Basically, the protagonist of any teenage aimed thing, like movies, cartoons, TV show, whatever. It was just the prototypical teenager of the time period, at least like white male. And it was just like there was always some sort of like fashion trend going on, you know, clothing, hair, certain kind of like sunglasses. I mean, it was just a giant product placement, and it was just absolutely crazy. And for some reason, when we get to about COVID time, there really hasn't been much of that. I'm not really seeing it. I mean, there's obviously fashionable people, and like the only like fashion things I've been seeing is like Met Gala. That's really it. That's all I see. Um, Now, I have noticed in some of the newer, like K dramas and stuff like um, even some Japanese movies uh, that are set in modern time. I am starting to see a bit of a fashion trend happening over there in terms of a lot of layered, baggy clothing. And that kind of shocked me just a little bit, that this is starting to happen overseas, just because all of the other things I've been seeing is we're still in the fashion of 2019 getting into 2020. Like at least what it feels like in the States, it's just we're nowhere near close to whatever might be happening overseas. And I don't know if that's just like uh, America is just like so hyper focused on itself in media that uh, we're not paying attention to the rest of the world, which is very on par for the country. Uh, but it's just really interesting because you always had the guys that were trying to figure out what's the next hairstyle that Brad Pitt's going to come out with, and lo and behold, there's going to be that one guy that's going to look like Brad Pitt, come next term. Uh, you've got you know whatever company is like the hit fashion for anyone that is just into like hip hop and rap R&B, which for the longest was like a mix between like Fubu, Echo. Um, one other will probably come to me at some point. Um, you had girls that were trying to dress exactly like Paris Hilton and Britney Spears and uh, Jessica Simpson and J Lo. Um, Destiny's Child was still hot, so you know people were blasting that up their cars. Mainly the preps, but it's just absolutely crazy. And like I said, even in video games, you saw fashion in that too. And I don't know why I'm sitting here just talking about this instead of drawing, but yeah. So there's definitely just like a lot of just stuff that wasn't expecting, and yet here we are. Overpriced copies of the original gear. What was popular then? Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it was kind of like the same thing with why are you buying jeans that have holes ripped in them? You just continue on wearing the pair that you currently have. And you try to go to school doing exactly just that, and you end up getting sent home. Um, just wild times, man. But some of the stuff that I've been, trying to do is, outside the whole fashion thing, is doing stuff like this. And I mean, I guess just the typical stuff that I have been doing. Uh, there have been days where it's, when doing it, there is definite joy. Even though there's been several times where I've literally banged my head against this, um, there's definite joy in it. But it's getting to a point where I've realized trying to do this level of work every single panel in an interior, it doesn't work. And this is where I've basically just kind of told myself I need to have some sort of new style, separate style, what have you, to counter against, trying to keep a deadline for myself. So I'm basically just finding new ways to, you know, do the stuff that I have been doing and yet still try to put out something that's quality work. And I'm still trying to figure it out. Um, but there's just a lot of days where I really just want to do this. But one of the things I kind of noticed, I was just stumbling upon some really old artwork that I did. Uh, it's probably going back, I don't know, 25, maybe 30 years. Um, aside from the just, just doing it basically all the time, drawing without much of a care. Um, there was definitely a lot of, I guess, what could be considered as just really good cartooning. And a lot of the stuff I've been reading, you know, while it definitely would not be considered like really good cartooning, just really good uh, comic art. So, like, case in point, Bug Wars, Muhammad Asrar stuff is really good comic art, but I would not consider it cartooning. Uh, I would argue to say that I think he would absolutely kill it doing, uh, European comics. I mean, even though the guy is living out in Austria, I think, or is it Turkey? Um, I think he would just be killer uh, at just doing stuff with like Xavier Dorson. But that's also just, me totally shooting in the breeze with that. I think I put myself in a hole. Not so much drawing this, but more so to the fact of that he is mounted. I think that's the only part that's just kind of um, messing with me right now. And of course, probably not going to eat this just to save myself from some grief tonight. But tomorrow, when I look at this, I'll decide, am I going to continue on with this or do I want to try a different post? But I still want to have the bird. So Covers and interiors are definitely different gestures and strokes to a certain degree. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um, so I remember a conversation I had with someone that was griping about the fact of, um, gosh, this goes back to this was the Rocketeer 30th anniversary or 35th anniversary, whenever that special anthology one shot came out. Adam Hughes did a short in it, and someone made some sort of comment regarding uh, he should just stick to covers, blah blah blah. And I don't have to defend Adam Hughes. The guy can do that on his own. Um, but I've definitely kind of felt the bait reeling me in on that one. So I basically just said, uh, the thing is that what you don't realize is that the guy has been doing interiors since the late 80s. He can pick and choose what he wants to do regarding covers or interiors. It's just the fact of he did this and it's still good work. But he did that just because of the fact of like Dave Stevens was one of his best friends and also influenced him to a degree. So, uh, but the thing is that with Hughes, when you look at his evolution throughout the decades, and I can even say this about Travis Charest with the interiors he did for Ambassadors issue 2, issue 3. I think it's issue 3. Um, both of those guys put out quality work, uh, whether it's interiors or if it's covers. But the thing is that like they're going to be able to put out a cover a lot quicker than interiors. That's just a given for anyone. But with the amount of detail, composition that these guys put into their work, it's it's very much next level compared to someone like uh, Jorge Corona, uh, who, by the way, has been doing interiors for Transformers for the last. See, issue 20 comes out this week, so he's been doing it for the last 14 issues, I think. And the thing is that like, and that's not a jab towards Jorge's work at all. It's good work. He is excellent comic artist in his own right. But the thing is that like I'm pretty sure he is doing those interiors at a much quicker pace compared to Adam Hughes or Travis Charest, for instance, which Charest has been notorious for taking his time. um, but there was something that I think it was Ryan Otley uh, had posted something online, and he basically just said, "I had to during the Invincible years, he had to basically create two different styles, one for covers, one for interiors." Uh, and the more I just kind of thought about that and looking at his work, I can sort of see it. With covers, you definitely want it to be, catching enough to where it's going to say the statement that's going to want to grab the reader to want to pick that off the shelf, open it up, and see it. Frank Miller did a similar statement regarding covers, and this is if you exclude the song that he has done within the last however long ago. Um, but he basically just said an iconic cover is something that
you can automatically recognize it if it was the size of a postage stamp. And that has a lot of weight and bearing to it, in the sense that uh, there are a lot of cover artists out there in the world. It's almost oversaturated. How many of those people can you recognize their covers uh, literally the moment you walk into a comic store? And how many could you automatically recognize that it was done by that person if it was the size of like a postage stamp? And the answer to that is very few and far in between. Um, so, and I also noticed with like a lot of manga artists, um, the only times that they really put the extra efforts into certain pages is when uh, you know something's about to go down with the characters, the plot, what have you. And I'm starting to think I need to adopt that mentality a bit more, just so I can spend a little bit less time um, fidgeting about, you know, which perspective do I want, these characters to be in this panel. That in hindsight should not have taken me, as long to do compared to um, a page that has like, a splash page that's like a 3 point perspective. So, um, a lot of it is like a time thing, and a lot of it is just uh, I really need to do something to change, because doing this all the time, it can get very tiring. Um, Despite the fact that there is joy in it. Um, Got to keep reinventing, or just doing things differently enough that it keeps you engaged. So my phone is basically at the 30% mark, and do some extra comments on here. So let's get to these as quick as possible. Also at a place where he's going through that. Recent interiors are way more grittier and stylized with more contrast. I have noticed that with some of the pages that you've posted on Discord, uh, and I'm at that point where it's just like complete opposite, where it's just like as easy as it is for me to do the whole when in doubt, black it out uh, with just panels. It's very easy for me to do that. I just don't like the idea of being looked at as the one trick pony. Um, and I mentioned this probably like an hour ago. So trying to actually see if I have it over here. Yep. So one of my recent purchases, for people that don't know and they aren't following me on social media, uh, it's not one that people would normally think of, but it's this. And you're probably wondering, why did you buy this? Well, outside of the fact that it is an art book and it also has really nice colored interiors as well, along with really cool vehicle designs. But I've always enjoyed Fujishima's work because of his evolution, which actually started off a little bit on the gritty side. When you look at some of the earlier stuff, I mean, it's still clean. There's just you could tell that he was like trying to kick the tires on the bike to make sure that things are going the way that he does. And now, I guess as time passed, you start to see the evolution where uh, things are a little bit more streamlined. There's a few less lines here and there, and a few extra lines in the other places where it needed it most. Um, and the only reason that uh, outside of that that I even picked this up is because I recently rewatched the Tales of Fantasia OVA, and I was always impressed by just how clean those character designs were. Very simplistic, and that also influenced me to think about that more often. Um, and of course, with Free Comic Book Day doing, about 30 sketches and what was it, 6 hours, 7 hours maybe. Um, that also kind of got me into the rhythm of I was really boiling it down to its simpleness and uh, drawing the hell out of what's left, which is a very Alex Toss mentality. Um, but it reinforced that statement and that idea. So it's also kind of gotten me to realizing there are certain things that, man, I am just really bad at. Some of it is rendering light colored hair, like, blonde hair or white hair, like this character right here. Just really bad at rendering that for some reason. And that was something that I had to work on when I was doing the aerial piece. Um, and it took me a while to figure out the best way for me to just show, you know, super flowy hair for one, but basically just the whole thing of just like, can I figure out how to show these layers and the best way I can do it with the least amount of lines? Um, and the other thing that I also realized is, excuse me, there's something interesting the more I see people, specifically guys, uh, that are doing comics and they try to draw women. And if they put in one line too many or one line in the wrong place, you've instantly uh, like aged your female character by like 30 years. Um, you've, you know, done certain things to, try to draw a beautiful woman, and it just ends up going not in that direction. You just gave it a lot of hard lines. Um, but you ask any of these guys to draw like, Superman, and it's fantastic. But and some of this is just kind of something I've noticed with certain male artists, like, David Finch. Dude can draw the most jacked superheroes in the face of the planet, but he cannot draw Wonder Woman to save his life. Um, but on the flip side, you've got male artists that are extremely good at drawing women, but they cannot draw men to save their life, and it's just an odd dichotomy uh, that these problems should even exist. Um, you're probably wondering, where am I going with all this? Well, again, this kind of goes back to the whole thing of just like trying to find the simple way of like doing this stuff and trying to make it work for me. So therefore, I've got like a whole new vocabulary, if you will. But the same premise is there, the same idea is there. It's just we're going about this differently. So I I hate the fact that I've been trying to like get to this point for like the last 2 years, but now it's got to a point where it's just like, okay, we have got to do this, or we're not ever going to do this at all. You're going to get burned out again. So that is definitely where I'm at. All right. So thank you all again who just happened to have popped in. I knew it was not going to be a high uh, viewer count due to the fact that it's Mother's Day. So for those of you who have been spending time with your mom, you're a good kid. um, so we're going to end this off real quick with these few words. Haven Comics, located 1871 Slaughter Road Suite F in Madison, Alabama. And if you happen to like the show, any other show that we do on the Haven Comics YouTube page, please remember to like and subscribe. Click the bell notification whenever we just happen to go live. Um, Aside from the Thursday night shop talk with Josh, who is the owner, and Alan, who is one of our longtime volunteers, uh, I do this thing lines on a page sporadically on Sunday nights. Uh, don't like to bug everyone like I used to back in the day, but you know what? It's nice to get back in the saddle with doing this. And if you want to figure out where you can find me on social media, just type in that URL, uh, and it will send you to a page that has several different links. And this is where you can find me on social media. But the very first one at the very top is a free newsletter. I do it once a month. That's it. It's just to get you guys to understand, you know, if I've got any sort of events coming up in the near future, if I've just done an event, here's some pics from that, pieces I've been working on, and other little doodads here and there. And hopefully soon, I'll be doing a paid service out from it, and that's where excuse me, the new comic is going to be uploaded. So more about that later, hopefully sooner than later. And yeah, I think we're at that point. I wish I could make your show more often. Thanks for like, yeah, 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 yeah. Thanks for coming in, man. It's good to hear from you. All right. See you guys later.